Smoke Show! Ladies and gentlemen, joining us today is one of the foundational pieces of who I am as an analyst. From the NFL Network, your favorite analyst's favorite analyst, Mr. Adam Rank. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today on The Smoke Show.
Dude, Josh, you flatter me way too much. I don't like hearing things like that where people say, listen, you have achieved your dreams because you and your fortitude and your drive and your passion. I am just some clown who's on television. That's it. You're the guy, you're the genius who goes out of his way every day to entertain people, to entertain the masses, and to go out there and drop knowledge every day. You are the true hero.
Well, not all of us wear capes, but thank you very much, Mr. Rank. But seriously, it's a huge honor to have you on. Like I said, you're one of the pillars of Smokey-Hell Nelson, the fantasy football analyst. But I find you to be one of the most entertaining personalities on sports television. You are electric. You are Derrick Henry trucking Josh Norman. You are Marshawn Lynch running down the sideline on the Saints. Knowing this, I was not surprised in the slightest to discover that you do stand up. I mean, your monologues you open with on the Adam Rank podcast always have me laughing on some level, and you have
Thanks.
tremendous stage presence on television. And that even comes through on audio when you're listening to the podcast.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. Was this a byproduct of being so close to a thriving comedy scene in Los Angeles growing up? I know you were born in Chicago, but I'm not too sure how early you moved out to California.
Oh my gosh, I moved to California when I was in first grade. So I've been out, I
Oh.
basically, although, you do see me wearing the Team Canada sweater. It is one of those things. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but over the last couple of weeks, over the last month, I no longer have to pretend I'm Canadian. Although I will say I never, no, I never pretended that I was Canadian. I like Celsius, I like Tim Hortons and poutine and stuff like that. And so when people be like, "Are you Canadian?" Over the previous 4 years, I wouldn't outright lie because that's not me, but I would not deny it. I'd be like, "Oh, you." Like everybody's like, "Oh, Celsius, you Canadian?" Like, "Oh, you." I'd never answer it because I'd be like, "Oh, maybe that's why he's so level-headed and feels like people should have insurance." But in any event, I grew up. I'm sorry that went to a weird route. I'm sure you're like, why did I invite this guy to be on my show? This is not what we were here for. But I grew up in Southern California, and one of the things that I really loved growing up were sports and comedy, like Saturday Night Live and all that stuff. My parents were somewhat supportive, but like my mom was like a real like she loved my mom loved everything that I loved, which was amazing. She was a gamer. She loved playing Super Mario Brothers when I was a kid. By the way, we had a rule in our house. I don't know if I know you're probably not old enough to know what Super Mario Brothers is, but it was a game. And I'm sorry, Josh. I don't want to insult you. I don't listen. It's an antiquated thing from the
I was born in
NES.
1982. I had the original
Okay.
NES as well.
All right, so you're good. Okay, so we're simpatico there. So my mom, you remember, you could jump levels. My mom reset the game one time. She like reset it, and I'm like, what is going on? She's like, nope, you got to do every level. Like in this household, we do every level. And you're like, okay, well that's gonna be the rule of the house, so that's what we did. I remember one time I was, it was a school night. I was sleeping, and my mom woke me up and it was great because my mom was nocturnal, and my dad was a guy who went to bed like 7 or 8. So he was to bed early. I was to bed a little bit like in between, and my mom was just a night owl. And so she woke me up one night like in a what? You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I'm like, whoa! I thought like maybe there was an earthquake happening. Like what's going on? And I ran out to the living room, and she had finally completed Mario Brothers and had to show me. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like this is it? This is this was the big emergency. So she was like that. She would let me, even when I was a little kid and my bedtime, I was able to extend my bedtime on Saturdays to watch Saturday Night Live, to watch A&E's Evening at the Improv and all that stuff. So it was something that I was really interested in, and when you're a kid, you want to do everything. You're like, I want to be a comic. I want to play for the Rams. going to play for the Angels. I'm going to do all this stuff. And it really was something that, my sister, was involved in TV production as well. So I was always into that. Yeah, that was always something that was part of me. Like, I figured, like, no matter what, if you dabble in a lot of different things, you'll find your passion or anything like that. You know what I'm talking about, Josh? Like, you do a lot of different things. We all have a lot of different hobbies. So comedy was always something that I was very, very into. And as a matter of fact, I wasn't even sure, like, I didn't know how my parents felt. Nobody in my family before me has ever graduated from college. So I didn't know if I was going to go or whatever. And then my parents kind of made a deal with me. They're like, hey, you should go. Like, we kind of want you to go. And I played baseball in high school. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll go to Cal State Fullerton, see if I can make the team. I could not, because those guys are awesome. So you know what? I went out, and then that was just a big thing. So even when I was majoring in other things, comedy was always something that I kept my hand in.
Amazing. So who's on your Mount Rushmore of comedy? Who was your foundational pieces?
Wow. You know what? I really loved Eddie Murphy. Like, Eddie Murphy was somebody who I was a huge fan. I love Joe Piscopo too, but Joe Piscopo's kind of, I don't know, if I saw Joe Piscopo today, I'd probably freak out, because my sister, who was a little bit older than me, she was living in New York, working, and she had a part, she was trying to make it on theater and all that stuff, and working in television production and everything. But she also had a job at the Hard Rock Cafe. And I remember one time she got me an autograph of Joe Piscopo that I think is still around here somewhere. I got to find it. Like, okay, Joe Piscopo. But Eddie Murphy, loved Robin Williams as well. Mm-hmm. I think, one time my mom got me rented a VHS from the video. Like, nobody knows what I'm talking about. There were these video stores, like pre-Blockbuster. You know what I'm saying? Like, pre-Blockbuster, and I got a Robin Williams stand-up. And it's so funny because, your parent, like, your mom knows, or your parents know a comedian from his television roles, which at the time was like Mork from Ork, and something like it's like, it's cuddly, like it's TV friendly. Robin Williams stand-up is not family friendly, like anything but. And so she was like, wow, what the hell what am I letting you watch? And so, so I didn't get in trouble. I'm like, you rented it, not me. Like, I'm a kid. Like, I didn't do this. I would have been happy with WrestleMania 3, but you rented this instead at my behest. So I love those two guys. Steve Martin was another big one of mine. And then I also like Brian Regan and Bobby Slayton. I know that now I'm doing 5, but those were a couple of guys. Actually, when I started working at the Irvine Improv, those were some of the bigger headliners that were going through, and were super cool guys. So those are some of my favorites. I'm sure some others will spring to mind as we go forward into this, but I know that Eddie Murphy and Robin Williams were probably two of my number 1 and 1A and 1B growing up.
Oh, well, Raw was that jam growing up. I remember just slapping that VHS in high school, and me and the boys just losing our minds to him doing Cosby and everything. Oh, it was just unreal. But yes.
When I worked at the Improv, one night I went to go, cell phones were still starting to become a thing. And so my girlfriend was late because she worked at the Improv too. And I'm like, hey, I go, what's going on? Like, I couldn't, I'm like, what? Or when I finally saw her that night, I'm like, what happened? Like, why are you home so late? And she's like, oh, Robin Williams popped in and did like an hour. And I'm like, what why didn't you tell me? And she's like, go listen to your messages. And so I don't, like, for kids who don't understand, your voicemail was on a separate box that was attached to a house phone. And I'm like, what are you talking about, woman? And you hit it and you're like, oh yeah, she's telling me. And it was like, you got to come down. Robin Williams is here. Like, and obviously I worked there, so I could have just showed up, like, for real. And I didn't live far away. Really upset to miss that. That was one of my biggest laments. Like, how I missed that, I will never know.
Oh, that's unreal. Did you ever see him live?
Yeah. I caught him here and there, but yeah, never like a I forget who the headliner was because he came down. It wasn't Jonathan Winters. It wasn't somebody like that, but he had just come down with somebody like that kind of like when you go to see a show to see Robin Williams where you're expecting it, like obviously that's amazing. But I always wanted to get one of those pop-ins. Like you always heard about it. Like, oh, this guy popped in or this guy did this or things like that. And during my time at working at the Irvine Improv, that was the of that 3 year stretch of like, remember the time Robin Williams? And I'm like, no, because Stephanie was here and I wasn't, and I was pissed.
Oh, that's a tragic miss right there. So what did you do there?
I was a food runner. I was the easy a food runner, bar back, bartender, doing whatever. I think a lot of us, the improv always has about 30 people who want to be in comedy. So we're all just kind of waiting around. And I remember one time the first comic whoever brought us out was a lady named Diana Jordan. And she was doing a show and she comes back, she's before she went on, it was Sunday. I think it was like a Sunday night or a second show. Oh, it was a Saturday night. It was the second show and it was kind of slow or whatever, but it wasn't a huge. She's like, you know what? She's like, who here does comedy? And so, it's like my roommate Eric was there and a couple other people, Jeannie and all these. Like, she's like, she's like, okay. She's like, I'm going to bring you guys up. Like, you guys get to come up and do 5 minutes tonight. And I didn't want it. I'm like, all my friends and roommates were like, yeah, we're on. And I'm like, nah, I don't know. I'm not ready and whatever. She's like, you'll never be ready. Like, she literally had to, she's like, you'll regret it so much if you don't do it, please. And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, please do it. So I went out and did it. And it actually went pretty well. It wasn't too bad. So we had a lot of fun. And, that was my first time getting on stage at the Improv. So that was it. It was pretty cool. But yeah, it was a real cool job.
Oh, that's fantastic. I actually have a little bit of relevant life experience there. I worked for probably about 4.5 years as a bartender in a comedy club in Victoria here, and just got to see a ton of cool people roll through. And it was just a fun scene because I didn't want to be a comedian. I was quite happy just being in the background, and when the lights go on, then I get the stage back. But but no, it was a ton of fun. I absolutely love being enveloped in that scene. In the original iteration of this podcast, my first guest was a comedian that's signed to 604 Records up here in Vancouver, Kevin Banner, who was actually my roommate in Vancouver and also best man at my wedding. So I stayed well connected to the scene in one way or another.
Oh, that's cool. Who was like one of the coolest guys who ever came through there for you?
I mean, it wasn't huge names coming through or anything like that. One of my favorite sets I ever saw was by Daryl Lennox. He just had a mastery of the stage, mastery of people, really good crowd work. But there's just so many good ones that roll through. I mean, like I'm impartial to Banner there. He's just a home run. Like this guy, same age as me, but he is just one of those guys that should be on the rise a lot higher than they are. He came out with an album, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic. But seeing all those people roll through, like, because I would sit there and see, 2-3 shows every weekend. And it's just a good scene to be around.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Oh, totally. But this next little question I got, it kind of ties well into this. And I got into this debate recently, and I'm very curious on your take. How important is the entertainment factor, that it factor, speaking from on-camera experience? Facts and stats, they are what they are. But I believe the delivery and presentation, much like a well-cooked meal, is of high importance.
No, I agree. I mean, who would disagree with that? Somebody's like, I want somebody very static and banal and bored. Like, who wants that? Like, honestly, I know people will sometimes get upset and they'll like, oh, you're a clown, like whatever. But no, you want somebody to be entertaining. And, on our own network, Kyle Brandt on Good Morning Football, like he's amazing. And, he has that background in acting. He was on The Real World, obviously. He was on Days of Our Lives. Like he's got a robust background. I'm pretty sure he studied it at Princeton as well. And like, it shows. Like there are some things that you can't teach, that you got to go out there and you've got to have the charisma and kind of have that stage presence. But it also, I think that anybody who has been in a performing arts will also practice that. Like I practice probably every day. Like it was funny. I was on the Tim and Sid show and they asked me, they're like, how often do you cut a promo in your mirror? Like a wrestling promo. And I'm like, every day. Like every time I see a mirror, I want to cut a promo. Like you call that a beard? Like what kind of shaggy wannabe do you think you are? That's not a beard. That's not robot. Like I'll cut promos on myself. I'll cut promos on my toothbrush or my razor or something like that. I just feel like you always want to be practicing and always want to be doing, you always want to be improving. Like I think that's one of the things that comes along with being in the art. That sounded so pretentious. This is the thing about being in the arts. When you're an artist like myself, we strive every day. No, but it's like, but you do try to give a performance in everything that you do. If I'm reading for my 5-year-old daughter, she's got a book about a stuffed bear. And, it's, what is the name? I can't even think of this name. This is so crazy. I read this book every night and I can't think of the name of this dumb bear. It's not Paddington, but it's like, why can't I think of this name? I am losing my mind. This is going to bother me. Okay, it'll come to me later. But when I'm doing it, I always read like different voices and different inflections. And there's different, sometimes the night security watchman is Scottish. It's like, hello, how'd you get up here? Corduroy. His name's Corduroy.
Yes.
Hello, where'd you come from? Let's get you back downstairs, eh? And you're trying to do stuff like that. Always trying to improve. Now I do, like, it's not all performance. I do want to read and I do want to, make sure that what I'm saying is intelligent and there's facts behind it. Like I turned in a story today about players who should be traded, and I'm like, oh, it'd be pretty cool to like if McCaffrey got traded to the Seahawks, that'd be kind of cool. Like that would be fun. But then I'm like, wait a minute, like who's got extra 2022 draft picks? And I'm like, oh, that's right. Seattle dealt theirs to the Jets. So that might actually not work. But the Jets have extra picks. So if they wanted to trade for Michael Thomas or whatever it is, and doing that extra step. So all of it is important. And I think that if you're focused too much on one and not the other, I think it's going to hurt you. But I think that like anything in life, it's all about repetitions, whether you're playing golf, whether you're a musician, whether you want to be on television, or I'm sure for you, as you're doing these shows, you notice how much easier it gets every time you do it. I'm sure the first couple of times that you did it, you were nervous. You're like, oh my gosh, you're running around, you're doing whatever. And now you're like, whatever. This is not like you're not taking it serious by any stretch of the imagination, but you're not worried about like, how do I sound or what, like you're getting it down because you have the repetitions. So I think that it's a combination of everything. Like you want to be good at everything. Like I don't want to be the guy who's just like, oh, he's funny, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. I know I get that a lot because of the 49ers 3-13 thing, which by the way, obviously that was wrong, but even this year, the people they're trying too hard now to clown me. Because they're like, oh, look at you. You said the Bills were going to be terrible this year. I'm like, I said they were going to be 9-7. Like, I'm sorry. Like I missed by a couple. Sorry that my prediction in June, like, how hard, like, think about it. Think about every week trying to pick games, like just pick games every week. No spreads, no nothing. Just pick the winners every week. It is difficult to go perfect. You're not going to go 16-0. It's very rare. Or whatever, if there's bye weeks or 12-0 or whatever, like you'll miss, like even when you have all the information available to you.
Mm-hmm.
But before the season in June, sometimes even earlier, mistakes can be made. And like, I don't care. Like the people, like the bosses and everything, they understand. They're like, yeah, whatever. By the way, I've never went back and checked, but I know I had the Bucks going to the Super Bowl, and I want to see what the record was because that's the one screenshot that I haven't seen. So I know it must have been pretty close to being accurate. Like if I don't see the screenshot, then I know it was a good one. Like I didn't see the because I had the Steelers at 13-3, which I know they lost a couple of games at the end. Never saw that one again. Never saw this. Like, but you're like, oh look, clown, Broncos sucked. You're like, all right, they had some injuries. What do you want me to do? But it's funny. But honestly, like you should have, like if anybody's trying to get into this, and this is one of the things that they always tell actors, which is actually kind of annoying as a comic, is they always tell actors, like you should try stand-up. And so every time, every open mic, there's a large percentage of actors, and their open mic comedy set is about being an actor. Like, oh, my acting coach told me to do stand-up, so here I F off. Like, just do your jokes. Do your jokes, or else they're doing somebody else's jokes. You're like, that, you know what? Can I tell you this story?
Oh,
Josh? I feel like we're friends enough now. So I had a joke, and one of my friends is like, hey, here's a joke you should do. Like, here's a tag. Like, I'm always apprehensive when people want to come up and give me tags. Like, unless you're really funny. Like, there's this guy named Corey Robinson who's hilarious, who's given me a couple tags. I've used them. They're great. One time, one of my friends, this is not Corey, this is somebody else, gives me this tag for this joke that I do at an open mic, and it was really funny, and it hits. And then somebody comes up to me, and he's like, hey, he's like, by the way, did you know that was a Norm Macdonald joke that you did? And I'm like, son of a bitch, no wonder. All right, because my friend's not funny. So this joke was hilarious. I'm like, but is it like word for word? He's like, yeah, word for word. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm an ass. I'm embarrassed. I'm like, okay. And then I go to my friend who not funny. And I'm like, hey, I go, do you know the joke that you gave me? Like, that's a Norm Macdonald joke? And he goes, yeah, I know. And I'm like, why would you tell? And he's like, well, it kind of went along with your homeless thing. And I just thought I'm like, dude, it's not like, no, it's not like you can't be a cover comic. It's not like you're a band and you're going to go cover a song. Like, I just can't go and cover jokes. Like, hey, everybody, who wants to hear some Carlin? Let's go. And start doing his set. Like, you can't do that. So no, I'm always apprehensive whenever somebody wants to give me a joke. I'm like, I Google it now. I'm like, let me throw this phrase in there and Google it. And then, okay, cool. If I don't find it on the internet, then I hope that we're safe. But if someday I know like Joe Rogan's going to show up and that's part of the problem too. If you do like too much observational humor, like there's a set that I do that I know it's like part of it pertains to me, but part of it doesn't. And I'm like, I know this other part, it's like very observational. I know somebody's had to have talked about this before because it's not like it's not like somebody else wouldn't have thought of this. That's why whenever I do it, I always like having the personal stories. You know what I'm saying? So you're like, somebody can't do that. Like somebody can't just take a story unless they know my daughter or something or whatever's happened. You know what I'm saying?
So, exactly. Keep it relatable, but still personal.
Relatable, but it's something that happened to me. Like anything that happens to you is always perfect game because you're like, no, that story actually happened to me. It's like in the movie Go, where Breckin Meyer's character is telling a story, and the other character's like, yeah, that story happened to me, dog. Like, thanks. You always want to be. The movie Go came out in the 90s. Jay Moore's very funny. Very cool, by the way. But do you remember Henry? Did you ever see Henry Cho? I know he was really big in the 90s. I'm sure he's still touring. He's hilarious. He was actually one of the nicest guys. Anyway, I'm sorry. I got on a tangent there.
No, it's all good. While we were on the little tail end of that tangent, have you heard Norm Macdonald's rendition of the moth joke on Conan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
He's the best. By the way, Norm Macdonald has sat shotgun in my car.
What?
Yeah. So I was working at the Improv, and he was there, and it was a Saturday. He was Friday, Saturday night. So on Friday, and like a lot of the coworkers would go out afterwards and go drinking and go partying. And at that point in my life, it really wasn't my scene. Like I was just coming out of college, and I was trying to get serious about comedy and like sports writing and everything. So I wasn't always going out after work, but like Norm Macdonald was going, I'm like, I'm in. And I'm sitting there and I'm playing pool and like he's my like him and I are partners. Like it was cool, like running a tail, and I drove him back to his hotel. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like great experience. I was actually the only one who was there. I mean, I drink, but I was sober. So I was the only one sober. So I drove him back to his hotel. And the next day he comes in, he's like, hey, you want to go to that bar again? Hey, good time. Yeah, you have fun, right? We'll go play pool, And I'm like, cool.
Fantastic Norm, by the way.
Thank you. So we went, and the next night, nobody wanted to go. So it was Norm and I, and we were just sitting there, and he was, single at the time, and he fancied one of the bartenders. And he's like, hey, you think you could, go talk to her or something? Hey, you know that girl? Hey, can you go, talk to her? And I'm like, let me see if I get this correct. You're on national television right now, but you're afraid to go up to this bartender at the Trocadero in Irvine, California. What am I missing? Where's the confidence of the guy that I saw kill for, 90 minutes a moment ago? Oh yeah, just see see if she has a boyfriend, Yeah. And it was funny. It was funny too. When I was driving him back that night as well. And I'm like, you know what the funniest, I'm thinking to myself, the funniest part of all this is like, he has no idea what my name is or anything like that. And I swear to God, right as I was thinking that, he goes, hey, anybody ever call you Adsy? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because we call Sandler. You call him Adsy. Hey, everybody call you that, And I'm like, nope, nobody's ever done that before ever. So, so I did that. You know what? The dumbest thing is like, he gave me his phone number. That he's like, hey, if you're ever in New York, want to see the show, let me know. So I'm like, okay. And so I got it and I went home. And of course my roommate was like, dude, call it right now. See if that, cause it wasn't a cell phone. It was like his home phone. He's like, call it. And and so we called it. Hey, yeah, this is Norm. Yeah, I'm not here right now. You're gonna leave a message. And I never took advantage of it. I should have. My sister lived in New York. I should have flown out there. Should have gone to a show. Who knows? I might be on television. Oh, I guess it worked out well for me. But still, I wish I would have done it.
That's amazing. I can't believe that's a great Norm story. I'm gonna have to share that with Bansky. He's a huge Norm guy.
he's a delightful person.
Oh, I say, well, us Canadians, we try to keep it cool.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, you're Canadian? Oh yeah, I forgot, Hey, yeah, my dad used to say it and what I'm starting to do Norm jokes again. Yeah.
So good. All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's bring it to your Bears. And I know your beloved Bears have had their ups and downs as of late, with a lot of that tied to the quarterback position. And I know one of your favorite lines here is the best three quarterbacks in Bears history during your time was Jim McMahon, Jay Cutler, and Walter Payton on the halfback option.
I laughed at my own joke.
It's a winner then. I believe your guys dodged a bullet with Wentz. I think he landed in the best spot possible for Wentz. But do you believe the Bears have the capital to pull off a deal for Deshaun Watson? Personally, I don't think it makes sense. And instead, I want to bring up a couple names that you mentioned in a recent live stream of yours on the topic, specifically Ryan Fitzpatrick, Marcus Mariota, and Sam Darnold. Of those three, who would your preference be from both a real football standpoint and a fantasy view standpoint? Do you give consideration to what might be an off-season of one-year deals until the cap rises again?
Yeah, for sure. And I talked about this on my YouTube page, youtube.com/Adam NFL. What up? Cheap plug. Beep, 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 beep. Fitzmagic is always fun. Like, and I even liken Fitzmagic to doing shots of Fireball. Like, it's fun. It's fun once in a while. And then after, but you can't do it every week. You're at some point you're gonna be like, bro, this is too much. And like, that's the thing with Fitzmagic. It's great in limited supply. And then you got to like dial it back. And that's been the hallmark of his career. Like one of the best short stretches, like short stretch NFL quarterbacks, like Charlie Hoffman, like a great, like the guy, or Tony Finau, who's great, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday falls apart. Although he was great at Riviera the other day on Sunday. He shot a 64 and people are clowning him. Like, leave him alone. What do you want? So I like him. It's fun. It would be amazing. Like, I would buy if it's Magic jersey. Like, let's make no mistake about it. And the other guy, who is it? Sam Darnold you were talking about?
Mariota and Darnold.
Darnold, yeah. You didn't mention Gardner Minshew. I think he should be in the mix as well. But I think Sam Darnold has a lot of potential. I think that he's been in a situation where he's not been given an opportunity to thrive, because Adam Gase is such a joke as an NFL head coach. I always say this too, and I'm going to go for one of my other jokes that I love to say all the time, is that Adam Gase gets so much credit for directing Peyton Manning's best year of his career, Jay Cutler's best year of his career. So I'm like, you look at this guy who was working with the greatest quarterback, perhaps the greatest quarterback of all time, and he also worked with Peyton Manning. And that you're going to give him credit for? Like, that's ridiculous. That is, no. So I would like to see Sam Darnold be given another opportunity. I think that sometimes coaches and players just don't mix. The one thing, though, is that I believe that Matt Nagy is looking for a guy who's kind of either heavy on swagger, which would probably lead them to a guy like Gardner Minshew. Like, he has that kind of arrogance. Like, Nagy's a real ego-driven guy, which can be good and bad. And I think that Gardner kind of fits that bill, although I really do favor Marcus Mariota. I think what we saw in that one game with him against the Los Angeles Chargers showed what he can do on the NFL level. I think that he was in a situation that just wasn't working out for him. And sometimes these quarterbacks just need to switch locations. Ryan Tannehill goes to a new place, becomes a pretty good quarterback. I think Mitch Trubisky could even go to a proper situation. I really hope, for Mitch's sake, that he goes to Los Angeles to back up Matthew Stafford. I don't think that Mitch is going to go somewhere to be a starter. But he could just take the minimum and do the Jameis Winston and back up Stafford, figure he's going to get hurt for a game or two, go out there, show what you can do, and then the following year go out as the salary cap expands. You could go out, maybe find a starting gig someplace. And I think sometimes these quarterbacks just need to move a little bit. And I think if Mariota comes in, and I could see him thriving in the offense that the Bears run. He's athletic. He can move pretty well. He's actually younger than Carson Wentz. He's a former Heisman Trophy winner. So he's got game. He's got a pedigree. He's got everything that you want out of a quarterback. So I think that he would probably be the best bet. And I think he's one of the guys who has the most potential. And Darnold and Gardner obviously fit this too, of being guys who could actually be long-term solutions.
Oh, absolutely. They're all still young. They have the athletic profile for it. The only reason that I didn't include Gardner is that in my opinion, I think Jacksonville should lock him up as a backup. I think him, if something happens with Lawrence, I mean, I'm just assuming that they're going to take Lawrence first overall there. But if something happens with him, something doesn't gel, injuries happen, Gardner's been there. He's got rapport built in with that receiving core. I think it's just a logical choice, and he's not going to be expensive.
No, that's the thing. That's the one problem, is that he's an inexpensive option that you don't need to get rid of. Like, it's not like when you have two cars and you're drowning in an extra car payment and you got to get rid of one or whatever. If you can afford to have two, you're like, well, why wouldn't I keep this other one? It's paid off or whatever. And that's kind of what Gardner's like. It's like, he's super inexpensive. I think he's still on his rookie deal. Like, why would you? They're in no rush unless Gardner goes out and forces them to make a trade, which I can't imagine. But who knows? Stranger things have happened. But I was just going through, and when I did my list, going through guys who are somewhat reasonable, because we run through the situations like Deshaun Watson doesn't seem feasible. Russell Wilson's not going to happen. Derek Carr even seems like that's not going to happen either. So I tried to look at some of the guys who I think are realistic. And I know, and even with like Jameis Winston gets thrown around, I don't know why everybody would be so eager to have Jameis Winston. He was a starting quarterback for 5-6 years in Tampa Bay. And we saw what happened to Tampa Bay the year after he left. Like I don't know. I think that if Jameis sticks in New Orleans, he's got a chance. But I think switching systems once again, I don't want to be a part of that.
No, I don't think Winston's the play. I think if New Orleans is smart, they should lock him up.
Yeah,
Um, Again, an inexpensive choice, but he could work at least as a bridge until they figure out what the hell they're going to do post Breeze.
yeah.
But sticking with your Bears here, one of my favorite guys that I was touting all year since, just after the draft last year was another one of your boys, Mr. Darnell Mooney. He looked the part out there, but despite being 11th in deep targets with 23 on the season, he was top 10 in unrealized air yards with 739. Probably attributed to quarterback play. But he saw a bit more red zone work towards the end of the season, getting a bit more trust in the gameplay with 5 red zone targets in the last 4 weeks, and that got him 2 tutters. With some more competent quarterback play, do you think Mooney could take the next step with the possibility of no Allen Robinson returning?
Yeah, that's one of the things. It was bittersweet to see him do so well because I was talking to some of my friends who are Bears fans. I'm like, every time Darnell Mooney goes out there and crushes it, he's ushering Allen Robinson out the door because they're going to look at cost and everything like that. But I do believe that he could be one of the. I want Allen Robinson to stay, and I really do believe that if Robinson is there, that Darnell Mooney can have a second, like a step up year that we've seen, not maybe to the level of Calvin Ridley or Chris Godwin, but very similar and taking a bigger role in the offense. And I think honestly with Cole Kmet too, I know that was kind of a surprise pick for a lot of people, maybe a little too rich than a lot of people would want to pay for something like that. But I really do believe that Cole Kmet has a lot of ability. I think he can be a poor man's version of George Kittle. It's funny because we have a lot of poor man's versions of like Darnell Mooney could be a poor man's Calvin Ridley and Cole, but sometimes that's all you need. And even the poor man, even the Costco version, even if you're buying the Kirkland tight end, sometimes that's just as good. Like, I don't mind. Like if I get the Kirkland protein bars, like I'm not spending high dollar for one of your name brands. Like forget that. I'll take the Kirkland level here. So I love Darnell Mooney and I like Cole Kmet. And if they get a quarterback, and more importantly, if they work on the offensive line, because that is something that I've been talking about. Because I know Daniel Jeremiah put out his mock draft today or recently. I saw it on the NFL Twitter feed. And DJ has them taking a wide receiver. And a lot of it, this is pre-pro days and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of things that are moving. I would rather just have them take an offensive lineman. Because the one thing that Pace has done pretty well, like obviously he's whiffed on the quarterback. That was a pretty bad miss. But at the same time, you look at what he's been able to do, like later in drafts, getting David Montgomery, who was awesome last year.
Yeah.
Darnell Mooney, great player. Anthony Miller's okay. Cole Kmet is somebody who I believe can develop. He's done a nice job getting guys like Eddie Jackson as well. So he does pretty good. He's it's going to be hard to outlive the Trubisky thing, but he does a nice job with the other positions. So just go get a tackle. You'll find another playmaker in the second, third, or fourth round. It's going to be fine. And there's still free agency. You can bring in like Marvin Jones or somebody like that. So I don't know. That's what I would like to see them do.
I think my comparison for Darnell Mooney's ascension this year would be like a Michael Gallup kind of bump.
See, if the Bears weren't my team, I probably would have, been more realistic like that. But I wanted to go full Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley. But that's what I'm doing.
But even if he hit that Gallup bump, I'd be quite happy with that. I'm a huge believer in the talent, and I've got him everywhere.
By the way, I know that I was again writing about some trades that would be kind of cool. I think the Cowboys should probably move one of their receivers. And I know that people probably look at Gallup as the odd man out, but what if they traded Amari Cooper? What if the new offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans this year was formerly the offensive coordinator for the I got to remember what city they were in at the time. The Oakland Raiders. He was the offensive coordinator in Oakland when Amari Cooper was there. He was their quarterback's coach when Amari Cooper was there. I think Amari Cooper to the Titans would be a fun little option.
Ooh. Him lining up across from AJ. You can keep AJ on the outside, move Amari back to the slot, get those those stronger corners off him. Oof, I don't hate that at all.
I would love to see that.
Especially with Johnny moving on. Yeah, that's always been my, like, I'm a diehard Cowboys guy. But that's always been my belief as well. If they're going to move on from one of them, it's got to be Amari. I mean, there's a really good out in his contract after this season. So I would like to see, because we didn't get to see it last year with Dak for a full season with this receiver core, which I believe is, probably top 5 for receiver.
God,
for trios of receivers, top 5 in the NFL.
And Blake Jarwin got hurt too. I mean, we didn't really get to see that offense fully operational at all.
No. But you know what? If we can get a full season of Dak with these 3 receivers, see what they can do. I mean, this is going to tell you what you need from this team next year, provided everyone can stay healthy. O-line is going to be another big thing. I mean, I've seen more than one professional mock out there that has Sewell dropping to the Cowboys at 10, and I don't think there's a hope in hell that happens. But I said the same thing last year. I said the same thing last year about CeeDee Lamb. I previous to the draft, I did probably about 20 mocks, like picking for the Cowboys, and I had Lamb dropping to us in 3 of them. And I'm like, there's no way, absolutely no way. And I was giving Felix a bath. And I think it was the Fantasy Pros live stream for it or whatever, playing on my phone as I'm listening. And it's like, who did the Falcons took a corner, I think, before a guy that probably could have dropped to the 2nd round.
Yeah, they took the kid out of Florida, I think. Right?
I believe so.
I threw my phone over there because I didn't want to be interrupted, but yeah. All
good. Anyways, and I start shaking. I'm like, holy shit, Lamb's still out there. There's no way we can't take him. If they pass on this, it's just silly. And I hear them say Lamb, and I fist pump so hard, I almost put my damn fist through the roof, man. But no, moving on from Amari is the move. I love Gallup out there. He's got great rapport with Dak, and he's just that breakaway, like that stretch X out there that can just tear apart some defenses, man. Keep him honest. Yeah, well, we already kind of covered Ryan Pace a little bit there about giving Nagy the right
jumped
pieces.
ahead. I know.
No, that's perfect. So let's throw another one in there. You are taking over Ryan Pace's body for 1 week. Ooh. You get to make, let's say, 5 relatively minor moves. No franchise shaking paradigm moves. What are some of the ones on the top of your list, free agency wise, pre-draft?
Well, one of the things that, again, I really want to shore up is the offensive line. And I know that as much as everybody is trying to figure out which quarterback is going to end up with the Chicago Bears, I would start to see if there's any offensive linemen who could be available. Orlando Brown is always somebody who gets brought up. I don't know. Again, you might have to, even if you have to give up, your top pick or something like that, what wouldn't you use number 20 overall for Orlando Brown? I mean, I think so, right? If I'm valuing this correctly, and I hope that I am, that is really where I would start to be looking and trying to find some of these cheaper options, especially defensively. I think, too, a lot of people are not considering how much Chuck Pagano was different from Vic Fangio and how big of a difference that is going to make. And really looking at finding ways to get Eddie Jackson back. And I think now, with the new defensive coordinator, they're going to put Eddie Jackson back into a position to succeed. So you got to find out who's going to be playing safety opposite him. I think you've done a great job of getting, a corner opposite of Kyle Fuller. I think Jalen Johnson was a great pick out of Utah. Somebody who probably would have gone in the first round if he had not been hurt. That was one of the things last year when I was doing my mocks. I had Jalen Johnson pretty high because I wasn't too concerned about the injury. And even though Jalen started getting injured towards the end of the season, again, I think for the long term, they're going to end up having one of the better cornerback tandems. So I would definitely want to look at possibly getting another cornerback to play there, a nickel corner kind of guy, somebody who can, kind of step up. I know Buster was fine, but I would want to upgrade a little bit with our nickel corner. Going to need a safety. I think finding some depth on the defensive line, I think that is going to be huge as well. I think that, they had Bilal Nichols opted out last season. He's going to be returning. So I think that's going to help out. We're getting another year of Akeem Hicks, hopefully. He's been such a huge part of that defense. I think that's fine. But really shoring up the offensive lines, figure out what we're going to do with Jimmy Graham. If you can't extend him, then perhaps, I like the idea of having two tight ends, like finding a way to make it work with Jimmy Graham, I think would be ultimately the way that you need to go. Because I thought that obviously the Bears were getting clowned money-wise and how much they spent on him, but he was actually a pretty effective player. And he's a great option in the red zone. He scored the final touchdown for the Bears and then walked right down the tunnel. So I really think that having him and Cole Kmet is something that's going to be a recipe for success moving forward. I know that fantasy enthusiasts will hate it because there isn't going to be one guy that you can draft and be like, oh, I'm starting Cole Kmet every week. But I would try to find a way to make that work. Try to get some, what are you talking about? Getting some
12 personnel.
Yeah, some more 12 personnel. But I want a little bit of salary cap relief so we can make a couple of minor moves too. Because again, I mentioned Marvin Jones too as a potential, like starting to look at some of the wide receivers that we're probably going to have to look at. Assuming, although if I'm taking over for Ryan Pace, I'm going to be like, okay, let's just extend Allen Robinson. And I know that on Tuesday you can start to franchise these players. If they do franchise them, I hope it's not for the purpose of just trading him. I hope they will let him, do at least if you don't want to give him a big deal, then let somebody else give him a big deal. Like, don't be a dick. Don't pay him the top 5 money, which is nice, but it's a risk. He deserves a long-term deal with a signing bonus.
Absolutely. I mean, he has done nothing but produce for that franchise, and they've done nothing but surround him with shit. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, he deserves a good quarterback. We actually had this little segment on my other podcast, the Jet Sweep Show, with my co-host Will Harris, and we were just talking free agent destinations and stuff like that. But we just every place that we thought would be a really good fit for Allen Robinson, it was just a terrible quarterback situation. We're like, I don't know, does he have this just like gray Eeyore cloud over him that says, no, I can't have a good quarterback, but I'm still gonna produce. But no, he deserves a good quarterback, man. I'd love to see him go somewhere and it doesn't matter where he goes. He's going to be absolutely on fire, and the team that gets him is going to be just very lucky.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's good. I like it. Your moves weren't the sexiest of moves, which I think makes you probably a good GM. You don't want to go that Jerry Jones route, just make those big splash plays.
Yeah. Well, if I was a team like Green Bay, and I hate to say this, I don't want to give them any ideas, but like Kenny King he's leaving, so they need to make a move at cornerback, and obviously they've got one of the best in the game right now. Why not make a move and try to get Stephon Gilmore? The Patriots throughout their history have always gotten rid of their big name players, like obviously Tom Brady last year, but it's been a thing when you go all the way back to the history of Bill Belichick, where they got rid of Richard Seymour and Teddy Bruschi retired or anything like that. They always got rid of these guys. Logan Mankins, you're like, this is it. This is the one that sinks the franchise. Never did. And even last year, I mean, obviously you lose Brady. He goes on to win a Super Bowl. The team was also stung by the most opt-outs and everything like that. So I don't think the Patriots are that far away. But, Stephon Gilmore's 31. And if you're the Packers, you need to start trading away and making the big splash plays and trying to get out and find and make moves like this that have not been part of your history, but you have not reached the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've had Hall of Fame quarterback play for 30 years.
Wasted.
2 championships to show for it. Because everybody's like, oh, the Bears. I'm like, yeah, I know. We haven't, you know what? We haven't had Brett Favre. We haven't had Aaron Rodgers. We had Rex Grossman, Kyle Orton, Shane Matthews. Like, no. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's a move. Like, if I was doing it for them, like, there are teams that you go out and you make huge ass moves like that. splash plays. I don't think the Bears are really in a position right now to make a splash play. Find a decent quarterback, fix the offensive line. Just you need a safety opposite of Eddie Jackson. Like a nickel corner is not exciting. Like it's not going to be like, oh my God, like it probably wouldn't make sense to trade for Stephon Gilmore to be your nickel corner. But, for a team like Green Bay, I think that would be huge.
Oh, absolutely. And their window, I mean, if you're considering a window with Aaron Rodgers under center, it's not large.
No.
So you need to capitalize on that. A move like Gilmore, I think, would be genius.
Yeah. Because otherwise it's going to close. It's going to close because, like, so much stuff. And I know Bakari went down, so that was kind of huge. But that shows you how thin the ecosystem is for the Green Bay Packers. See, that's one of the things, like, why I always feel, and this is why I think that Houston should never trade Deshaun Watson and why the Seahawks will never trade Russell Wilson, but why, as a Bears person, I would trade however many draft picks it would take to get Deshaun Watson. Because anytime you go into a season with a quarterback like that, and obviously it didn't work out for Houston this year, but anytime you go into a season with Deshaun Watson, you got to feel like, oh, we got a chance.
Yes.
We got a chance to go all the way. Like it's conceivable. Our quarterback's good enough that we could get to the Super Bowl. With a team like the Bears, you need everything to go absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. And you know what? And you can be upended by a rainy night in Miami, like it was for Rex Grossman, a goddamn double doink, like it was for Mitch Trubisky, and the whole house of cards falls down. The Packers are set up like that too. But they've got Aaron Rodgers. It shouldn't be that way. Like, it sucks that you lost your tackle, and I know the same thing happened to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but at least the Chiefs got there. I don't know. Like, you can't have your ecosystem be so fragile. The Packers need to go out there and make moves. They should be trading their first-round picks every year. They should do it like the Rams do it. And, the Rams, now that they have Matthew Stafford, I don't know, man. I thought last year they were already better than the Packers. Like, I thought, like, if Aaron Donald would have been healthy,
oh, that game would have been completely different.
They would have beat him. Like, that game was stupidly close for no reason. I mean, the Rams are just better. They're like, God, but they have that mode of, like, the Rams aren't going to have a first-round pick until Fernando Tatis, until his contract's up with the Padres. So it's like, that's a baseball reference, by the way, kids. You might want to read a little bit or just go on the internet. But, the Packers need to go that. They need to go that route because the route that they've been going has not benefited them at all.
No, mismanaging a generational talent. I know that is a bit of a hot button term. Yeah, two of them. Absolutely. Yeah, it's... I mean, as a Bears fan, you probably aren't too broken up over it, but as a fan of the game, it's a little tragic to see.
Even as a fan of a game, I don't care.
Oh, that's why we get along, Rank. Let's bring it back to you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I remember seeing Ride the Lightning as your favorite Metallica album.
Yeah.
I feel this is a take that needs to be explained further.
Why?
Yeah, we might have to. What is it that you put on the pedestal? What makes it take the number one?
Because it's an amazing album from beginning to end. It's funny. They always make there's always a perception, like the best. Every band's first album is always their best. And you think of like Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, and that clearly plays out. And there's a lot of them because the thing is a lot of these bands spend so much time getting big that they have time to refine these albums so that when they finally reach the scene, they have this album that they've been working on for a decade. They've been playing forever. So it comes out and it becomes really good. But there's also a situation too with some bands where either their first or second album is really good, but it's before it gets heavily produced. Like if you look at like Blink-182, Enema of the State, or Dude Ranch, I think Dude Ranch is better, but Enema of the State is more glossy, more well produced, and Travis Barker's on drums too. Wait, no, he's not. Is he? He is. No, he's not. Is he? No. Was Scott the drummer on Enema. I don't know. I have to check it. But anyways, it's more produced. So it comes off and people think it's better, and it's not. Dude Ranch was the shit. Oh, wait, you've cussed. I've heard you.
Oh, yeah. Drop anything
I've
you want.
heard you work flu. I think Metallica has the same thing because Master of Puppets and the Black Album are great albums, and they're so well produced. But I think when you look song for song, I think that Ride the Lightning, to me, has superior songs. For Whom the Bell Tolls, Fade to Black, Ride the Lightning, even Fight Fire with Fire. One of my favorite Metallica songs of all time is Trapped Under Ice. And I know this will be a thing, like it's a cassette. When you were a kid and you had the cassette, Trapped Under Ice was on the other side of Fade to Black, because Fade to Black was the last song of the first side and Trapped Under Ice was the first song of the second side. So it was cool, like you could flip them back and forth. I think that album, cover to cover, front to back, is so good. And I think that if it had been not like it was underproduced, but I think it was more of a Metallica sound. And Metallica is still one of those bands that still likes to live on their garage roots. You know, you see it a lot with, like, if you ever watch, like, I've really gotten into the band Rancid lately. And if you ever watch, like, they turn out videos now where they're still recording in a garage, you know, somewhere in the Bay Area. And it just looks cool. And they still, like, hold on to those roots. And I think Metallica does that, even though they've gone out and done, you know, albums with symphonies. Jesus Christ. But I think that, you know, is an album that's the truest to what Metallica is. And Ride the Lightning's better than Kill 'Em All. And it's not as overproduced as Master of Puppets. Master of Puppets is really good. Like, some of my favorite songs come from that album, like Battery, Damage Incorporated, you know, songs that people don't think of. You know, honestly, like, I don't take this literally, but like, I sort of, like, after Enter Sandman, the Black Album, I sort of like start checking out on Metallica. And I would love for them to do a thing similar to what U2 did before the pandemic, where they went around and U2 did the Joshua Tree, and they just played the whole album front to back. And I was never like a huge U2 fan. Like, I respect them. I was on the fence about going and seeing it because I like the Joshua Tree, and I didn't. And it's one of those things that the pandemic has made me look back on, like, what a fucking idiot I was. Not like, why wouldn't you go to that show? Like, if for nothing else, to go see them play Red Hill Mining Company in live for the first time ever, just to see if Bono was going to be able to hit those high notes. And you know what? I've spent a lot of time over the last 10 to 12 months watching music videos, and I love watching the concert videos from the Joshua Tree. I wish Metallica would go around and do a tour where they played Ride the Lightning front to back. And then they did another one. They could do Master of Puppets. And I would love to see those shows, because otherwise, I know it's great that they play these 6-hour shows and they're amazing and they're super cool and it's fun, but it's like, I don't know. I just want to see something a little bit, because like Iron Maiden does that. Although Iron Maiden does that with their new albums, but then they will do, like, I'm so spoiled that when Iron Maiden's coming around, I'll look at the set list, like, let me see what they're playing. And like, one time they were playing, like, I saw The Prisoner was on there, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm going. Get me my ticket. And now, like, I used to go to shows and like sit like a little further back, but now post-pandemic, I'm gonna be like, pit or nothing. Pit or nothing. Like, I'm the last time I saw Blink 182, it was one of the last shows at Irvine Meadows, and somebody gave me a free ticket. And I just took it like an idiot. I'm like, oh, okay. And I had a great time. Like, don't get me wrong, I had a great time. But now I'm like looking back, I'm like, should have just paid for the pit ticket. Like, Blink, especially Blink 182, because I was age appropriate enough to be able to go and see them when they were the supporting act on these bills. Like, we used to go to the Palladium. Well, they would play Southern California all the time. Go to the Palladium where it was the Aquabats with Travis Barker on drums, Blink 182, and then Real Big Fish. And at some point, you're like, this is going to switch. Like we're going to see
Yeah.
Blink. I remember when No Doubt was kind of, getting into, they were in that mix too, and No Doubt,
Hmm.
Sublime, and all those bands. They would play like little like strip mall bars here in Huntington Beach, and it was a lot of fun.
Man, that would have been an absolute trip. It's not the kind of scene that we see around this neck of the woods. But yeah, no, that's that you made a convincing case. I mean, I actually did a re-listen to it this morning. Personally, I'm a big Master of Puppets and then Justice for All guy. I just think
Oh yeah,
the
Justice for All. Duh. Yeah,
oh no,
another
it's
great album, of course.
oh, amazing. Like you can just imagine the direction that Injustice for All would have went if Cliff was still alive for it. Like I mean the roots were all laid there and the ascending path from, Kill 'Em all the way through Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, but when they got there I just felt like their songwriting itself was at a peak.
Yeah,
And I really wish Cliff had been around for that one,
of course.
just to put his spin on there because he had such that progressive mindset when it came to music, and it was just beautiful. He's one of the
Yeah.
reasons I took up playing bass in the first place.
Oh
And
no way.
yeah, and seeing or not seeing, hearing that album again today when For Whom the Bell Tolls, man, like that was it. That was the song. You hear that, you see him on those live versions, you just know like knee up on there with this
Yeah.
freaking denim jacket just swinging just yeah, that's Minion pajamas that I'm wearing down there. My pants are just
That's
drying
awesome.
right now.
But it's awesome. Like, and that's the one thing about playing bass is that I would always, I'm left-handed, so always do the Steve Harris.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that. Like there's another. Like that's another band too. Like they do so. Like Steve Harris is such an influence. The bassist, whatever the bassist is an influence on a band, I think it's always, it always helps. Even though I know people dog Nikki Sixx for using a pick, I think that like Motley Crue's music is pretty good. Like if you get through it all and you're just listening to it, like Motley Crue's pretty good. Everybody says that Mark Hoppus doesn't know how to play the bass, which I think is stupid. But by the way, if you the obviously Guns N' Roses "Sweet Child of Mine," the guitar riff that Slash does is so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of my friends was playing he still plays in these cover bands, and they were doing "Sweet Child of Mine," but they didn't start it with the guitar riff. They started it with the bass riff, and it's just so like it's just so cool. Like you don't understand like how great the bass riff is in "Sweet Child of Mine." Doom 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 doom. Yeah, like it's
oh man, Duff is amazing.
It's so recognizable. I also said that I don't know. You've probably heard of it. You and I have probably heard of this band, but like the Distillers, they do a song called
Brody Dahl,
"City of Angels," and I think the bass line of that. I'm like, I was listening to it the other night. I'm like, oh, by the way, I was listening to it. It was on YouTube. I do a lot of YouTube music, and I'll have it up on my TV. And it was "City of Angels," and then the very next song, I swear to God, the very next song was Rancid, "Fall Back Down," which of course is a song inspired by Brody for nefarious reasons.
Yeah.
I'm like, the YouTube algorithm has a very good sense of humor. Like, I really appreciate that.
Well, that's got a finger on the pulse for sure. Oh, that's too funny putting those back to back.
And then also and then the Ataris were on after that. And I'm like, oh, so now you have two songs where the frontmen are left-handed. If they would have gone Wings for the trifecta, that would have been cool. I can't think of another band that's a left-handed guitarist that's the lead, whatever. Anyways, that was a long response for Ride the Lightning. I was just about to dive into the Dandy Warhols too, but then I'll stop.
Absolutely love it. Okay, one last big question before we jump to the rapid fire segment here to close her out. This has been fantastic so far. Was there a genesis point for your love for the Bears? A singular moment that you can pinpoint it to?
Not especially, because I as a little kid growing up in Southern California, I was, exposed to the Rams a lot. So I came to the Bears a little bit later because, number one, we didn't have football in Southern California for the longest time. And number two, but my parents were big Bears fans. So I've always been immersed in it. So even though I wasn't living and dying with it as much as, I would have been if I would have been a fan, since the get-go, it's always funny that I remember my dad reacting to it. Like I remember, like I'm old enough to remember how pissed my dad was when they lost to Washington. I think it was in 87 or 88, or they lost to they lost to Washington in 87. They lost to San Francisco in 88. I think it was. Yeah, they were like 12-4, and like just living with it through my parents, that it's like osmosis where it feels like I lived through it. And I think that my number one thing was the Super Bowl and Devin Hester's return, because I had my dad's starter jacket out. And so I'm wearing my dad's starter, like an 80s authentic starter's jacket. It never comes out. And I was wearing it, and there was a table full of beers that got like knocked around, and like this jacket got ruined, but just like the euphoria of that moment of Devin Hester doing it. Plus, everybody that I was with, they were all rooting for the Bears. So that was cool. And like, it was just like, it was so much fun. Everybody was hugging, like, oh my God. Like it just seemed like it was going to be the Bears day. Like you couldn't have asked for anything more. I remember, the Chargers that year were 14-2. And it wouldn't have been too scary to play them, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, that's a good football team. The one team from the AFC that you wanted to face was the Colts. You're like, well, Peyton sucks in the playoffs. Like there's no getting around that. Like I don't understand why people even argue the contrary. Like it's just one of those things that don't make sense to me, because like if you want to come out and say like there was nobody more prolific throwing the football and all the records, like, yeah, I can't dispute that. Like he put up a lot of production, but when it came to the postseason, he sort of sucked. Like you have to, like, if I'm going to, like, it's, I don't know. Like that would be me. Like if I came out and said like, he was a terrible regular season quarterback, Peyton Manning sucked in the regular season, you would be like, you're a lunatic. And I'd be like, well, what's your proof? And they would be like, well, look at all these records. You're like, okay, cool. He sucked in the postseason. Here's my proof. Look at his goddamn record. Receipts. Look at the numbers. So what is it? What is it? How?
You can't tell me 2 + 2 = 5, man. If it's one way, it's the other way. Yeah, he was not a postseason performer, and that's all right. Still one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But
you're still good.
Yeah, call a spade, man. Yeah.
You're not going to the Hall of Fame, but you're like Tony Finau. Like, yeah, like that's great. But like there's some guys who are closers. You just weren't one of them. There's no shame to that.
While we're on the gold jacket discussion here, Devin Hester, should he get in?
Oh, goddamn, yeah. First ballot.
Yes. Thank you. I totally agree. Like he was, I mean, from my time in my life viewing football, he was one of the most electric, the best returner at that, man. Yeah. He was just so much fun to watch out there. I'm not even a Bears fan, but like it was electric. It was, like I said, he was a sight to see, and I hope he gets in. If not first, whatever, wait a year or two, but he deserves to be in there.
If he does not get in, I kid you not, I will send out a sharply worded tweet.
Ooh, spicy.
I don't think anybody's ready for that.
You don't want that.
Don't want that. Don't want that.
All right. Well, what do you say? You properly warmed up. You want to dive into a little rapid fire to close this out?
Let's do it.
All right. Okay. So we are going to do 7 questions. And I'm just going to give a little blank in some part of it. You're going to give me your first thought about it.
Okay.
And we'll see where we shake out here. First question. The Chicago Bears will finish with a record of blank.
At least 5 wins. No, I'm kidding. No, they'll go 8-8. I
8-8.
don't know. Well, here's the thing. It's the Nagy. Nagy's becoming very Jeff Fisher like. But you know what? The thing is, I will say this. They'll have at least 8 wins. They've never had a losing season with Mad Nagy, even with the quarterback play. I know people want to say that he sabotaged the quarterback, but sometimes there's a quarterback you don't get along with, and it's not your guy, and it's just not going to work out. It's fine. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to, like, there's some neighbors that I don't get along with. Like, it just happens. Like, usually my fault because I'm an ass. But, sometimes things don't work out. Like, you don't have to love everybody. And it was a situation that wasn't working out. I think that, you know what, the defense is going to be a lot better. You know what? I'm going to give them 10 wins. F it. 10 wins.
Love it. You heard it here, folks. Chicago Bears, 10 wins in 2021. Next question. Allen Robinson starts the season wearing a blank jersey.
A jersey with the number 15 on
it. Way to skate around that one. You must have some Canadian in you, brother. Beautiful. Okay, next one. Tom Brady finishes his career with blank rings.
At least 7.
Ooh, that's a pretty hot take, folks. I hope you wrote that down.
You know what, though? Here's the thing. I'm going to say 7 because we haven't seen a team repeat as a Super Bowl champion since Tom Brady way back in the early 2000s. I just think that you still need a lot of things to go in your direction, your way. And Tampa Bay was, they didn't have any super major injuries. The defense played the best that it was. It's just hard to imagine another team just coming back and winning back-to-back Super Bowl. I could see them going to the Super Bowl, but I think that what we've seen is like these teams get back to the Super Bowl and then they get felled. It happened to the Chiefs. It happened to the Seahawks. They were playing Tom Brady, the St. Louis Football Club. It happened to them as well. So I think that they should be considered the front runner for the NFC, but I don't think they're going to win it. And I think that this will probably be the last year for Tom Brady.
Interesting. I don't disagree with that one bit. Next question. We will see blank rookie quarterbacks finish in the top 12 in fantasy in 2021.
We will have one quarterback. I think there's a chance. It might not even be Trevor Lawrence. I think Justin Fields. You know what? Because if you think about a quarterback who can run a little bit,
yes,
it's so heavily weighted towards the quarterbacks who can run. This is why that I like to set up my fantasy leagues with quarterbacks who get 6 points for passing touchdowns. Because otherwise it gets too watered down for quarterbacks who run the football. In one of my big leagues, it's the Second City League, and I started Jalen Hurts. Even though, our commissioner has done a good job of making sure that the running quarterbacks aren't too heavily weighted, but I still went with him. And the way that the system worked out, should have started Tom Brady. Son of a bitch.
Wow.
But the thing was, the way the scoring worked out, in my defense, that if I don't know how that was a fumble at that, like there was some screwy officiating at the end of that Jalen Hurts game. And we only needed one more touchdown, and Jalen Hurts would have been a league winner for a lot of people.
Yeah.
God damn, I make the wrong call every time. Every time.
Well, we can't win every single one of them, brother.
You know what, though? In my rankings, so I'm sitting there, I'm doing my rankings, and I had Jalen Hurts as number 1 that week against the Cowboys. And who were the Bucs playing? Were they playing the Lions? What was it? The Lions? What was it, like 6 touchdowns in the first half or some shit like that? Whatever it was, I had Tom Brady at number 2. And so for everybody, unless you were in the same boat as me, where you had Jalen Hurts and Tom Brady, you're golden. Because I'm like, I think I tweeted out or I said it on the show or on my podcast or whatever. I'm like, who had both those guys? Because otherwise I told you to start Tom Brady. I was so bullish on Tom Brady. And I remember the Fantasy Live before the Bucs game, because I think they played on Saturday or on Friday or whatever it was. And I'm like, you know what? Like Tom Brady's gonna, oh, it was fantasy bites. I'm like, Tom Brady's going to eat. Like, it sucks for me because I wish I didn't have Jalen Hurts because I don't want to have to make this decision because I know I'm going to make the wrong one because I always do to this kid because the guy who I was playing in the finals, I always lose to. So I'm like, I just know I'm going to get this. I go, if I start Tom Brady, he'll throw 2 touchdowns and he'll throw for 100 yards and they'll pull him out of the game. And it was the exact opposite. So pit, but I knew he was going to have a good game. That's fantasy. It's like golf. It's not like golf, but it's like, it's so fucking frustrating. Like Jalen. And so somebody was like, and my friend, especially with our scoring system, and my friend was like, it wasn't, he goes, hey, he's like, well, it wasn't like Jalen Hurts was a bad call. I'm like, bitch, I lost by 5 points. Like, that's the thing. Like, you have to be it wasn't a bad call.
No.
Jalen Hurts he did not have a bad fantasy game, especially with the point score that we do. But I needed everything from everybody. And that was also a team where I had every great late season running back, Savon Ahmed, Jeff Wilson Jr.,
you have JT
Antonio Gibson, not Jonathan Taylor, but like the guys that you wouldn't have drafted or you were drafted really late. Like I had every one of those. Gio Bernard. It was impossible. It wasn't, and I didn't necessarily. Yeah, and I had Tyler Boyd. Like no, not Tyler Boyd. T. Hagen. God, it was just one of those things. Again, like it's like every player that I had, every running back that I had, scored 20 points. But and my friend was again. He's like, well, like all your guys. I'm like, yeah, but it sucks because it has to be I'm like, you guys are so shitty at the waiver wire that I get every good player and I have to make these decisions. Your teams suck. You have no decisions ever. You hope to find people. I have studs up and down every position. I had Younghoe Koo and Rodrigo Blankenship. I had both those guys.
Shit.
I remember my defenses. I had 2 defenses that were good. And you know what? That was also the week that Younghoe missed. Yeah, because Younghoe's missed field goal. Mm-hmm. That also caught. Like, there were so many things that go wrong. And you're like, it's fucking impossible. It's just fucking impossible sometimes. There's nothing you can do.
Even when the process is good, the bad results just come tumbling out sometimes.
That's why, and that is always the thing too. Like when people are like ripping it, you're like, bro, like who was it? I don't even know who. Somebody had a bad game, but it was a quarterback. Was it Burrow? Was it somebody? Anyways, like the thing was, if you go into a game and I tell you that this quarterback is going to attempt 45 passes against the 29th ranked passing defense in the league, would you take that? Like, regardless of how it finishes, is that the situation that you want? That's the situation that you want to be put in. Like, if it doesn't come through, that's not on me. Like, I can't be mad. It's like if you're sitting there and you're playing blackjack and the dealer's showing a 10 or the dealer's showing a 7 and you've got 20 or no, you've got 19. And I say to you, don't hit that card. Just don't hit it. Okay. Well, the dealer flips over a 4 and then a 10 and you get pissed at me? Like, what do you want me to, like, what? How is that my fault? I'm telling you what to do.
That's right. You're giving the most.
This makes me seem like a douche. I'm so sorry.
No, this is logical advice applied to situations that have such variance.
Yeah.
If you're giving the most likely result, you are doing good process.
Yeah.
But shit happens, man.
You know what? Honestly, this is the way that I usually describe it to people. Is that people ask you advice like you've already seen the game. Like, hey, should I go watch Star Wars Episode 9? If I said, greatest movie you've ever seen, go watch it. And you go see it and you're like, that was the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen. You can get mad at me for that. Like, yeah, okay, I know. I saw it too. Like, it's not like I've watched the game and have given you the wrong result. Like I didn't. This isn't the WWE. I don't know. Like nobody. This is a live action event. It's not scripted or anything like that.
Yeah, amazing. Some people that don't understand the variance and randomness of human life.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good one. Next one up here. We will see the first running back drafted on day blank.
Oh, there'll be a first round running back.
Ooh.
I think it'll be similar to last year as well. You know,
Right at the
well,
tail end there, eh?
yeah, because I think the teams at the back end of the draft, obviously, Tampa Bay wouldn't need one, Kansas City wouldn't need one. Buffalo, if ATN follows, like think about it, like Buffalo could actually draft a running back. I think that they should trade for Christian McCaffrey, but if that doesn't happen, I think that I think Buffalo could be in the mix for a running back if possible.
Wouldn't mind seeing Javante go there and actually give them a run game.
Ooh,
outside of Josh Allen, that is.
of course.
Cool. I like it. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Okay, next one here. The team to make the biggest splash or splashes in free agency this year is blank.
Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville's ready to make some noise. I think that obviously, presumptively, getting Trevor Lawrence is going to be huge, but I think they're going to want to make sure that they have a foundation and they're surrounding him with a lot of talent. I don't think, it's not going to be very tough for them to get back to the top of that division. You consider the struggles that Houston's been going through. I think that Tennessee's been walking a tightrope for a couple of years. Indianapolis has taken a risk with Carson Wentz. I think that, Urban Meyer can probably go for it. So I think Jacksonville is going to be very involved with a lot of things. And, if Allen Robinson does have a 1.5 on his chest, I think that number is available in Jacksonville.
Going back to the beginning, I don't hate that at all. A couple guys I had on my wish list for Jacksonville right now is Jonnu Smith and Curtis Samuel.
Love it. I wish that, obviously if you were going to make a deal for Michael Thomas, you have to do it after June 1st. So they can't really use the draft. This guy, they need to rectify the calendar so this could happen. But you know what? Like, who knows? Like if Michael Thomas after June 1st, if the Saints have decided they've had enough, reunite Michael Thomas with his college coach, Urban Meyer. Let's make it happen.
Michael Thomas and Trevor. Oh my God. This guy's walking into spoil. I mean, you already got DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, two guys I absolutely love, man. That's one of my favorite value stacks going into this year. If you can get yourself a little Trevor Lawrence, man, it's not going to cost you as much as, say, some of your top end stacks there, but the return should just be ridiculous.
Yeah, how many lineups are you going to have with those three guys to start the season in week 1? Like, I feel like I'm going for it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm in the middle of a draft with the rest of the True North staff right now. We're getting our first Dynasty League going, and that's my first stack right there was Lawrence and Chark. I'm absolute believer.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, let's next one here. This is the last rapid fire here. The starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints week 1 is blank.
Oh my God. It's so easy. Try it. Sam Darnold.
Whoa! Whoa! I am very glad I didn't have a mouthful of water right there.
What if, because if you think about this, the Jets probably won't trade Sam Darnold till after the draft. The Jets have 2 picks in the 2022 draft, including Seattle's that they got for the Jamal Adams trade. What if they decided to make a little deal, dealt one of their first round picks, Sam Darnold, to the Saints for Michael Thomas? I don't know. I'm just trying to trade Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I'm getting that feeling.
I don't think it'll be that fun. I think it'll end up being Jameis. I think they should stick with Jameis. I think they know what they got with Jameis. I would like to see Jameis get another opportunity. Not for the Bears, but for the Saints. I think it looks good on you, though. Like, you should go in there. You should try that.
That seems like a good you move, not a me move.
if White Claw came out with like a plum flavor. You should be like, you should try that. I don't want to try it.
Prunes for the youth.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to try it. You should definitely do that.
Yeah. All right. I've actually got one more bonus one in here, and it's not football related. Blank was the best bass player in Metallica for blank reason.
Cliff Burton.
Yeah,
the
baby.
Fucking best. Cliff them all, baby.
That's right.
Right-handed, sorry.
There you go. There you go. Wow. We went for one, man. We absolutely went for one. Yeah.
30 minutes.
30, 45 minutes. We got this. You know, that's a good thing. I'm running the show here and we got no constraints on, well, fucking anything.
I just thought it was so cute when you thought it was even going to be less than an hour. I'm like, all right.
Well, I just want to be respectful of your time, man.
Listen, because I don't know when you release this, because I tell everybody else that like, Wednesday is usually my media day, because it's just with the kids' schedules and everything, it's always easier for me to do it, and I can line them all up. This one I knew was going to go. I'm like, I can't put you, like, I'd either have to book 2 hours or whatever, or I'd run into some other kid's time. So I just wanted to make sure. So we did it on a Monday. Don't let anybody else get the idea. This is a special occasion. The kids, they're fine. They're somewhere. I put them in car seats and I left them in the middle of the living room. So they're fine. No, I'm kidding.
Safety first, kids. That's a great parenting tip. Always be safe.
That is the one. Because that's always my stock answer when somebody's like, where's the little one? I'm like, oh, he's in his car seat. We bolt it down to the middle of the living room. Like, he can't go anywhere. Like, he would be safe. We could leave a little gerbil bottle, so he's hydrated. No,
absolutely.
But he's
earthquake proof.
Yeah, he's there. He's getting his school on.
Oh man, that's
yeah, we need a roll bar for the earthquakes. Thank you. What a great call.
Thinking ahead. See, that's prescient thoughts right there, folks. Well, again, I have to send my absolute gratitude and appreciation for you coming out and sharing your time with the Smoke Show today. This is a little bucket list check off for me.
Me as well.
You've been so gracious with your time, man. You've given some phenomenal answers, and like you said, we filled up that 30 to 45 minute time slot there. But you know what? There's only one thing I got to say, and you know what? Where there's smoke,
there is motherfucking fire.
Yeah, buddy.
Wait, do you need a clean version of that, by the way?
Hell no. This is the Smoke Show, baby. Smoke Show.